Do you like to feel all comfortably floaty and let somebody guide you with erotical triggers? Let's have a deeper look into what trance and hypnosis could offer you through the BDSM perspective, of course. Whether you use hypnosis to condition your partner or in the form of a kinky role play or sensation play, let me guide you through erotical trance and hypnosis. Welcome to the House of Athena, the place where you can nourish your dreams, give birth to inspiration, and gain confidence to step ahead in your sexuality. Sexuality is sacred, in my opinion, and if you put the right effort to it, it becomes true art. My aim is to get you closer to your own potential pleasure and seduction skills. Of course, always remember to play it safe and to take care about each other. Last week I had a request on Patreon to talk about mind control and how it works. My interpretation of this request is that the person would like to know something about hypnosis in BDSM, but maybe sometimes I've been thinking that this question would be about the psychological knowledge of your partner in order to deepen your BDSM game. So that is some kind of, mind control in any way. Anyway, I believe these topics are kind of two different topics, should be handled differently. And this podcast will focus on the hypnosis kink, which is, yes, it is a kink. Is it safe? How do we plan something like this, etc.? In another podcast, I'll give a few examples of an erotic suggestion hypnosis for those who are interested in trying the experience. So I will give an example of a true hypnosis in another podcast. Now, first, it is very important to know that what it is all about, and that I will guide you and your eventual partner to be fully informed about this very particular kink. If this podcast inspires you and you're curious for more, please join my Patreon, where you will find the full videos of this hypnosis podcast. It's also a very good way to support me in my research and an effort in pulling up all these content for you. Any suggestions, of course, and reactions are very welcome. I'm always looking forward for some feedback. And I wanted to thank my Patreons and everyone who has sent me a private message in regards to my podcast. It is very much appreciated. So let me talk about trance now, because there is another way about putting this hypnosis. I can talk also about trance. It's a less scary word in some person's opinion. What I think about trance is it is quite inherent to BDSM play. BDSM can propel the participants into a trance-like state. You will recognize yourself if you play BDSM. This trance kind of experience can be due to a mixture of sensations, emotions, the way you relate to your fantasies, or the mindset in which participants propel themselves. We can talk about self-hypnosis a little bit. Now, imagine you are seeing the mistress of your dreams. She's dressed in latex. You've been only dreaming about this until now, and now you get to live it for real. She's handling you, you have problems focusing, you feel all these sensations, and it goes from soft to hard, and she's triggering your mind with words such as pegging, cock, punishing, obey, slave. You never lived this before. And in the end, you come not only to live your fantasy, but to feel your fantasy. Feeling your fantasy can propel you in some kind of trance, in a subspace. That is what it is called for submissives. Now, together with the side, your fetishes coming to reality, maybe sensations of certain things like getting pegged deliciously by your mistress, or having the sensation of some wax play. All this with or without enhancing substances such as poppers, well, BDSM is made to give you a rush that you will probably never find in real life. It's some kind of an adventure. It's like jumping with a parachute. You can really compare it, in my opinion. Now, of course, this is just to give a small example, but some might feel this kind of deep sense of relaxation while they are playing, like some kind of mystical satisfaction. They are still very conscious, you have to know that, but they are in deep contact with their inner dreams, feelings, their subconscious mind. Just as the slave was laying in a sling, rocking comfortably over a huge cock, eyes closed or blindfolded, he's in his inner sanctum, but he feels it for real this time, as I told you before. He's not dreaming it, he's feeling everything. I can tell you that that person is having the best time of his life. When he is with the right person, of course. You always have to search for the right partner to experience all of this. While the submissive is mostly living this trance while he's being passive, the dominant can propel themselves in a trance too. Their actions are like an art that relates them to their inner subconscious mind. Just the same. Just as the slave is relating himself to his fantasies, the dominant is just doing the same. But they express their inner fantasies with actions onto their submissive, so they're active. The dominants achieve that state of trance while they are doing something. For example, I achieve my trance with a mixture of looking my slaves deep into the eyes, tempting still. The slave is feeling danger coming close, and then I decide to pull some wax over their private part. I see their reactions, and it makes me even go deeper into my fantasy. It gives me ideas, and I switch from hot wax to ice cold sparkling water, and then maybe ice cubes, and then I look back into their eyes to see what their reaction is. Some slaves get to experience this pleasure in, they see it in my eyes while I am playing with their nipples, piling up needles into their skin and adding wax play. And, when I do this wax play, I feel sometimes that when I add something like scratching nipples, it's like it is soothing the wounded skin. It really looks very delicious. For the submissive, this type of meditative feeling is called the subspace. He's handing himself completely over to his dominant for the time of the game, and it can really make somebody's mind turn off and make you all floaty. For the dominant, there is no word for that kind of trance. Maybe you can find a word to describe it. Maybe you can comment it below. How do you feel when you experience BDSM play? Do you feel all floaty, like some kind of space? And how do you achieve it? Please make suggestions and share with me what your experiences bring you to when you're into that trance. Now, let me talk a little bit more about the core of this podcast, because we were talking about all these trance kind of state. But now I want to go deeper into erotic hypnosis. Now, hypnosis or mind control is a kink in BDSM. Yes, it is. Some find it scary, but others, they are really curious and they find it delicious. And some are really craving for mind control. I think that was the purpose of the question I had on my Patreon. Those who are into this kink, they imagine it's some kind of magical tool. The dominant can force a slave to do whatever they want to, and in reality, actually, that is a complete misconception. First of all, if you don't believe in hypnosis, you'll never get to that state of trance where you let somebody give suggestions to your subconscious. Secondly, it's never the purpose to harm or to control somebody. Again and again, I will repeat this. Every action is taken in the scope of erotical practices must be discussed before, you play the game. You always have to give expressive consent. So if you don't give consent, how do you want to get to hypnotize somebody and do whatever you want with them? But still, for the purpose of the game, you can tell your slave you will force them into whatever you want them to. So he'll become your obedient slave, and he'll obey. For some slaves, this type of game is an excellent excuse not to face their own critical mind and feel some kind of shame for doing BDSM games. Someone else forced you to do it. That is the psychology. It is as if they needed consent from somebody else to do it. And they get it through the hypnosis, because it's not their fault, right? Somebody else made them do it. On one hand, it is a fetish, and on the other, it's an excuse for the slave not to criticize themselves and fall into shame while executing their inner fantasies. Again, the mind has to find an excuse for somebody to be able to relax themselves into this kind of fantasy. Okay, so if hypnosis isn't that magical tool, then what is it? And what is it for? Hypnosis is a state of trance where a person is very receptive to suggestions. That person is awake, okay? But he's in a state of very deep relaxation. Sometimes it looks like they are asleep, but they are not. They are just very highly concentrated. And don't be afraid, you cannot stay into it, okay? It's another misconception. So let me repeat this. It's just a state of mind where you're very relaxed and you get accompanied by somebody who is getting your focus on something in particular. Through that focus, you will be able to be led into a trance kind of state where your mind is easily triggered by suggestions. And above all, the participants must be willing to do it. Again, I repeat myself. So, let me tell you how you can use hypnosis. So first, of course, you can imagine some kind of erotical game. Let's call it the kinky psychotherapist roleplay. The importance of the game will probably be set up not so much by the quality of the hypnosis, but more like the setup, how your therapist is dressed and how she's acting, and maybe if you add some kinky, talk, you have something kinky, but it doesn't have to add up a real hypnosis. You can do as if. The second is sensation play, and that is already something I talked about previously when I talked just about what trance is and how it is so inherent to BDSM. So sensation play is another way of playing. Most likely you magnify or damp certain sensations. I even use some sound-sensitive microphone to intensify the sound of my nails on certain devices, the sound of a pinwheel, the sound of my heels on the floor. I also whisper sexually triggering words. Some persons like the simple pronunciation of certain words. It will really propel them into their nirvana. I even experienced somebody having an orgasm while I was simply snatching my fingers. Can you imagine? I did it several times before he came, but without touching. Very simply. I even used my two hands. I asked myself where that trigger came from. Lately, I play sensation play while I'm putting my slave in a suspension position. They wiggle forward and back, or I can control the movements of the sling while they are in this suspension, and it's making them float like for real. There is so much to be explored in BDSM, and pain is not the only thing, it's just a small fraction. In the end, it's all about pleasure. I most like, when I play BDSM, I like the psychological triggers, like it's relating a person to the origin of the kink. Sometimes I don't know what's the real origin, but you can dig into somebody and find the real essence, the most important thing, the most important trigger to magnify their sexual experience into BDSM. And that is very beautiful. That's one of the ways you propel themselves into trance, just like the finger triggering snatch. The third option is mind control. That is the hypnosis everybody's talking about. I can almost hear you asking me, can somebody have an orgasm without touching him, or just on command? The answer is definitely yes. Remember the snatching of the fingers. I hope that that particular slave is listening to my podcast, because here comes the trigger again. The fourth is ASMR trigger, so I already gave a slight example, but together with a sound-sensitive microphone, I trigger the subconscious mind of my slaves with certain words or sounds. Sometimes I even bring a story, like a narration, storytelling, while I am whispering in a microphone. Some persons really get psychologically triggered, and they don't like to live the session for real. What they like is to close their eyes, to feel in their very small cocoon space in their head, and they want me to talk, to tell a story. So you have to do that for your mistress, or maybe a cuckold story for them. For example, their wife is home and cheating on them, and it's not their fault, but still. And then I'm playing the role of a therapist who's supposed to cure them. Very interesting, by the way. And so now I'm going to tell you a little bit how hypnosis is working. So there are mainly 4 or 5 different phases. The first phase is the induction phase, where you will guide somebody into the state of trance. You will recognize that phase as it is the very famous phase where you get to count from 10 to 0, and with each pronunciation or each number, the even number or the uneven number, you suggest to breathe in and out or to open and close the eyes. So I say, for example, 10, you breathe in and you feel the air coming into your lungs. And you go ahead, then you breathe out, you breathe in. But actually you accompany the person into something that becomes deeper and deeper and deeper, and they let themselves go deeper and deeper and deeper into all the suggestions you make. Secondly, the person is in a trance, and you will give a better insight in what's happening or what the person should be concentrated upon. And this could be, for example, a dot on the wall, or a sound, or the fact that their feet is grounded, or maybe they feel the chair they are seated on. Something like that. They can concentrate upon this. There is a third phase, some kind of a deepening phase in the trance. Most of the time I will accelerate my wordings, and I'm suggesting that the person is falling down deeper and deeper and deeper into the spiral, and you feel that you're so heavy and you don't even feel the floor under your feet. I'm suggesting something like this, and the person feels really heavy and that they are really falling into this spiral, and they see the spiral and they are feeling that they are falling very far away from reality. And they are concentrated upon everything I am suggesting. The fourth phase is about going deeper into the suggestions, of course, that I'm giving, whether they are physical acts or something more like imaginative. So the physical acts could be, let's say, you put your head on your hand on your head, and something more imaginative would be imagining that a word is flashing in the back of your mind, or that you see the lips of your mistress moving and you have to recognize the word. But then of course you will suggest what the word is, and the word is obey, and then you will ask the person to associate the word obey with a sensation such as happiness, so they feel happy being a slave. Now, what kind of suggestions can you make? You can make any kind of suggestion. You can, as I said before, like put your hands on your head, sit on your knees, repeat words such as yes, mistress, or I am your slave, or imagine things, and you add emotions. As I said, you pronounce a word and then you say, yeah, you feel very happy and accomplished with it. And you know that the only purpose you have in life is to be my slave. You can say things like that. During hypnosis, you can also make suggestions for something to happen after the hypnosis. For example, every time your mistress will say obey, you will say yes, mistress. So you will condition them for after the hypnosis. You can also condition them for what will happen when they have an orgasm, and how they will feel, or how it will happen, or for actually an orgasm to happen on command, such as snatching with your fingers. Now, the last phase of the hypnosis is, of course, the one in which you invite the person to step out of the hypnosis, and there you will count from 0 to till 10. So you inverse the complete immersion. You can, of course, get out of hypnosis from yourself, okay? But it stays a normal procedure to count back from 0 till 10 and accompany the person out of that trance. It can also be seen as some kind of courtesy. There are different styles, of course, and different methods of hypnosis depending on the style of the hypnotist. Sometimes certain tools can be used, such as, again, sound-sensitive microphones. You can do hypnosis with open eyes or closed eyes, or you can deepen or not deepen the trance. I like to deepen personally. So this is one of the phases I add by myself. Now, you will ask yourself, and many persons are very scared of this, is this all safe to perform this home with your partner? Of course, you will not be physically injured after hypnosis, but you're still dealing with psychological triggers, and this can affect somebody's emotions or psyche. That is the dangerous part. Also, make sure that the person you practice with hasn't got any psychiatric conditions. You start to feel already that there is a thin line you don't have to cross, okay? Actually, that line is invisible, and in some cases, it is very subtle. So, is it dangerous? Of course it is. You have to handle this with care. So, how can you play this safely? 1. Such as every game in BDSM, discuss the scope of this hypnosis. Set clear boundaries. Discuss this with an eventual script you make together. Take note of the suggestions and the triggers that you might be interested in. Then, of course, look up videos. Make research. I'm always saying that, and then persons tell me, like, what do I have to research? How? Just look on the internet. There are so many hypnosis videos on YouTube, and I will also post an example in my next podcast. Now, try to differentiate the phases, as I discussed, to make your own script. It's a good idea to look up some hypnosis scripts, for example, to take over the phases and to fill in the rest of the story with your own suggestions and your storyline. Also, start with easy, non-sexual experience of hypnosis with easy suggestions, such as lifting up your hand, smiling, repeating something. My last suggestion is not the least important. If you want to take this seriously and to the next level, learn hypnosis. There are nice workshops or PNL workshops. PNL, by the way, is something you learn to program through the use of language. A course will give you a decent foundation to this all, and you will have a more safe approach by after this. Also, it's very important to know how to accompany a person who's being hypnotized. Some persons could respond emotionally during hypnosis, and you really want to know how to handle when this is happening. Of course, you always have to stay calm. You're in charge. As always, as I say in my introduction, take care about each other and play it safe. This will be the foundation of the fun. Of course, if you don't want to go deep into the subject of hypnosis, there are workshops available, or you could try to contact someone who's a professional in the field. In my next podcast, I'll make a simple hypnosis trance audio just to give an example. As you see, hypnosis is not that difficult, but I truly believe that beautiful things can be achieved once you take your sexuality seriously. You deepen your knowledge into the topics you want to explore, and you always make sure somebody is safe. The same applies, of course, to hypnosis. Personally, hypnosis is one of my preferred tools to BDSM, and it's a lot of fun to make somebody experience trance while doing erotic suggestions. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast, and don't forget that you can join me on my Patreon to watch the full video of this podcast and support me in my research and the investment I make in doing these podcasts. Don't forget to share, and if you enjoyed it, Stay tuned on my social media for the next episode.